everyone, and welcome to this next episode of Coding with Dom. Today we're going to learn more about some basic features in Python, as well as go over some advanced ones as well. Okay, so we've already seen how printing a string in Python looks. You literally just write print with two parentheses, and then in quotes you say, hello world. Now, I want to talk a little bit about indentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a new variable x equals 1. Now, if we want to do an if statement, conditional, we're going to write if x equals 1, colon, space over there. Then after the next line, we're going to do an indentation. Now, you see Visual Studio Code already did it for us, but it's equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, or you could even do a tab. In Visual Studio, it'll convert them all to be the same thing, tabs or spaces. Now we can do print x is 1. There we go. So continuing, I want to talk a little bit more about assignment. So over here, we said x equals 1. Now what if we wanted to say a equals 2 and b equals 3? Now you can very well write this, and you can very well print a and then print b, and we'll see what happens there. No problemo. But another thing we can do is we can actually define them both on the same line, equals 2, 3. And then we can even print them both on the same line, print a, b. So as you can see over there, we print 2 and 3, and we're defining a and b on the same line. Now let's go ahead and add a string in the mix. So we say hello equals hello. So now we're going to go print the variable hello, and then we're going to go see, and then it says hello. So as you can see, if we do a plus b in this print statement, it's going to compute a plus b over here in this print statement and then return the output. But let's go ahead and try to add hello. So it's important to know that Python's type system picks up this error that we're not allowed to use the add operator, the plus operator, on int and string. So that's an important feature in Python to know. So we've discussed a little bit already about conversion of strings to ints, but I want to show that one more time to you all. So we can make hello equal to string 7, and then as we run this, it's still not going to work. But what we can do over here is add the int function around our hello variable. And then what that's going to do is when we run it, it's actually going to work this time. Great. So now we're going to do a little exercise. We're going to write my string equals none, my int equals none, and my float equals none. And then what we're going to do is we're going to write an if statement for each one. If my string equals hello, print hello. So right now let's go ahead and run this. As you can see, we're not printing the word hello. So changing this up here, what do we have to change in order to make this write hello? I'll let you guys think for a second. Okay, so what we change in my string is we have to change this up here to quote hello. And then as you can see, we can print hello. So let's go ahead and set up a similar scenario for my ints. So if is instance parenthesis my int comma int and my int equals 20 print int colon print percent symbol d percent symbol my int. So first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at this, and what does this do? There's an if statement, checks if the instance of my int is indeed an integer, and then it sees if the value of my int is indeed equal to 20. And if that's the case, we're going to be calling that print statement, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be formatting our integer as a digit, and then over here is where we're passing in the integer in order for it to print off. So let's go see what happens if we just run it by itself. Okay, so as you can see, this isn't working. So what do we have to change up here in order to make this one work? I'll let you guys think about that for a second. So over here in my int, I'm going to change this to 20. And now when we hit run, there we go. It goes ahead and prints 20. Lastly and quickly, we can set up a similar exercise for the float. So all we're going to do is go ahead and copy this block and paste it. So instead of my int, we're going to do my float. Over here, we're going to write float. My int, we're going to write my float. This one, we're actually going to test it to make sure it's a float. So we're going to do 30.0. Over here, I'm going to write float, %f, %, and then lastly, my float. So we're going to go ahead and run this, and once again, it's not actually going to print anything for this. So what we're going to have to do is not only make this a float, but make it equal to the correct value, which is 30.0. And now, as you can see with the type checking interface, this instance is checking to make sure my float is indeed a float, and this right here is checking to see the value. So when we hit when we hit run, there you go. There is the printed value for the float. Let's go ahead now and demonstrate a list. So we're going to instantiate a list, my list, and make it empty. And we can go ahead and print this, print the whole list, and see what that gives us. So over here, as we can see, we're just printing off an empty list over here. So now let's go ahead and actually get rid of this and start appending things to the actual list. So my list dot append 1. My list dot append. If only I could spell today. 2. My list dot append 3. Now let's go ahead and print off each one. Print my list at 0. Print my list at 1. Print my list at 2. We can go ahead and run that. We get 1, 2, 3. Now let's say we want to print each element in the list, no matter how long the list is. What we can do is use a for loop in Python, which looks something like this. For, you can name any variable right here, x, in my list. So what this is going to do now is we have a scope for the variable inside this for loop, so we can say print x. Now what that's going to do is the same thing it did over here, is it prints 1, 2, and 3 through the for loop. So that way you don't have to actually list each one. The for loop does all the work for you. Let's go ahead and start with an exercise. So let's say we have a list of names, and we can define the list in line. So we'll give the first name to be Dominic, separate each item with a comma. Next one, Patrick. Third one, Paulus. So what we can do now is, let's say I want to print the second name in this list regarding what it is. What exactly do I need to type here? I'll give you guys a second to think about it. Great. Now, in order to print off Patrick, all I need to do is write names at 1. So this is the 0th place, this is the 1's place, and this is the 2's place. So me and writing names at 1, I'm printing off Patrick. Let's go ahead and try that. There we go. So let's go ahead and define our hello world string again. And we're going to do some basic string operators against it. So now let's go ahead and print off the length of the string. So we're going to do len hw to get the length of hello world. So all this is saying right here is the hello world string is 11 characters long. So now we're going to go ahead and print our string dot index of 0. Sorry, of O, the letter O. So we're going to go ahead and print this, and we get 4. Why do we get 4? Because O is at not the 0's place, not the 1's place, 2's, 3's, but the 4th place in the HW string. So that's why this gives us 4. Okay? Now let's go ahead and print hw.count L. So you guys could probably guess what this is going to do. When we hit run, it counted the number of L's in the hello world string, which is 1, 2 over here, and then 3 over here. Great. So now what we can do is we can show how a substring works in Python. So we're going to do HW. So we already saw how we can do just a 0, for instance. It'll give us an H, or just a 3 for an instance, and it'll give us the L, right? But what if we do 3:7? What is that going to do? We're going to hit run, and we get LOW, almost like low, but there's a space in between. So that's this right here, low, because we're splicing it everywhere from the 3's place to the 7's place. Now, going a little bit more for this, we can do the same thing, but what we can do is we can step by 2. So now what this is going to do is it prints all of the characters from 3 to 7, skipping one character. It's start, stop, and then step is how that works. And the last one I want to show is how you can reverse a string altogether. Do print HW ::(-1). Prints off hello world backwards. You can think a little bit about how this works. We are able to reverse a string using this, and that's because we're stepping by -1. So this will give us the way to reverse the string. Some more features we have. Let's say we have a name, John, and an age, 23. If name is John and age is 23, you can say print, hi John, best 23-year-old in town. So what I want to show everyone here was this and. This is how you write an and in Python. So, but let's say only one of them was the case. So we say, let's say John actually got his birthday. So now this is not going to work anymore because this statement is no longer the case. So it's not going to print off anymore. But if we said, if your name is John or your age is 23, what we're going to do is, even though this one's false, this one's true, so we're printing out the statement anyways. I went ahead and brought down this names array, and what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to do a print statement and say Dominic in names. So what we're going to do is when we run this, it's actually going to give us a true statement. So we can use this for a conditional. Say if Dominic in names, print Dominic is in the list. So you can use the in operator in order to check if a certain object is inside of a list. Now I do want to write about the difference between the equals and is. So let's say I have a names array, and I call it names1, and I also have names2. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to do two if statements. Say if names1 equals names2, print yes. Let me hit play. I'm just going to go fix that up. We're going to go ahead and erase this one. So, playing this, we have yes. Now, if we say if names1 is names2, however, we do not get a second yes. Why is that? That's because this equals symbol in Python, this checks the value of the two lists. Are these two lists have the same, do they have the same value? This is checking something different. Are these two variables the same exact instance? Which they're not. As we can see, it's two separate lists. The lists are equivalent, that's why we get yes here, but the lists actually have two different values. I'm sorry, they have the same values, but the two lists are not exactly the same instance of each other. I'm going to pause over here for this section, and I appreciate you watching and listening. For our next session, what we're going to do is we're going to go over list comprehensions, regular expressions, that sort of thing. So thanks again for watching, and make sure you do the exercises.